This is Royals in the Pros, our segment that covers former Queens athletes that have moved on to play professionally in their sport. We've got Stephan Leblanc here today, a forward for the New England Black Wolves of the National Lacrosse League, and a former Royal class of 2009. Steph, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, no problem. Former New England Black Wolf, actually. I signed with Halifax recently, so happy to now be in Halifax.
And a Queens inductee into the Queens Athletics Hall of Fame of 2020, just the second men's lacrosse player ever inducted, and it was well warranted. A former All-American, Conference Carolinas Player of the Year, set all kinds of records, led the entire NCAA in points per game. And so we could start from the beginning. Growing up in Bristol, Ontario, what kind of made you choose Queens? What was that process like?
I think it was just really lucky. I was playing lacrosse actually in a town called Burlington in Ontario, and my head coach was also coaching professionally in Calgary, and the graduate assistant at the time for the men's lacrosse team was Taylor Ray, and he was playing at the same time as he was doing his MBA at Queens. He was playing in Calgary, so kind of my coach for the summer lacrosse connected with Taylor, and Taylor ended up bringing me out to Queens, and never really looked back. I mean, the thought of 12 months of summer really appealed to me, and that kind of led the way. And the fact is, I always wanted to play a college sport, so that was just double bonus.
Yeah. Well, you had a stellar 4-year career at Queens, and you were the first men's lacrosse player to play professionally as a former Queens Royal. And at what point, kind of during your career, did you think that playing in the National Lacrosse League was a possibility?
Honestly, probably not until I graduated, really. As everybody knows, you don't play lacrosse in order to make money playing professionally. So, it's growing now with the outdoor game, with the PLL and the NLL, blowing up the way it is. But, in 2009, when I graduated, it really was a thought of, am I going to play in the NLL, or am I going to go to Europe? And, like a lot of former lacrosse players at Queens, they went over to England and taught lacrosse and kind of traveled. So that was kind of my backup plan. It just so happens during the summer, which is in Canada, box lacrosse in the summer is pretty high level. I had a great year. So then I started talking to coaches in the NLL, and that kind of led the way. But before that, it wasn't really on my radar. It was kind of more focused on graduating and seeing what was going to become of my life after the fact.
And you didn't just get drafted. I mean, you were first round, 11th pick of the draft to the Toronto Rock. I mean, what was that kind of like?
Yeah, I had a pretty good summer. I mean, it was, again, I got to credit Taylor Ray. Was the guy. I actually moved after my freshman year in the summer out to the West Coast. So I went to Vancouver, and I was playing in a town right outside of Vancouver called Burnaby, who are a perennial power in Canada box lacrosse at the time. So that actually gave me good exposure to playing at a higher level of championships. And I did that for kind of 3-4 years throughout the summers when I was at Queens. So instead of going home at the end of the school year, I was actually flying out west, living with a billet and playing lacrosse. So, it was a little bit different than most student athletes, right? I never turned it off. It was, you're playing year round, and you're getting, exponential more games in. And so, that kind of put me in the right position. And again, I kind of owe it to Taylor for connecting me with the guys out west, and kind of started the snowball effect and allowed me to get better as a player, obviously, playing in a system that had won so many championships in a row.
Absolutely. And then that first year must have been a fun one. 2010, Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
So
So
you
it
just
was,
kept getting better.
yeah, it did. Well, again, and after Queens, I ended up getting a graduate assistant's job at Mercyhurst, which is in upstate Pennsylvania.
Right.
And so that allowed me to keep, really practicing 6 days a week with the guys I was coaching. And so really put me at a big advantage in a league that plays on the weekends, right? So I think that kind of allowed me to progress even further than I already had over the 4 years at Queens. So, but yeah, what a year. It was remarkable. I got to play, Garrett Billings, who, he was drafted further ahead in the first round than I was, and, went to Virginia and was an All-American and national championships and everything along those lines. So having a guy that I'd played with for, 3-4 summers in a row on my team, we're both rookies, we're both expected to really put up big numbers. So I think that kind of fed to the fact that, it was kind of a race between him and I for Rookie of the Year that first year.
Yeah, that sounds fun. That's pretty cool. The both of you guys being as successful as you were. And you kind of mentioned, I mean, you got your bachelor's degree from Queens, corporate communications, 2009, and you've kind of had to balance two different careers, two professional careers. You're a regional manager at Ford, if I'm correct.
Yeah. So after Queens, I ended up getting a master's in organizational leadership at Mercyhurst. And then from there, I moved on to Ford Motor Company, which actually a lot of Queens students have done internships with Ford. And I just happened to live in a town where the Canadian head office was for Ford. So that kind of because I had friends that had worked for Ford in Detroit or in Dearborn, it kind of was a natural path to say, hey, well, if they can do it in Dearborn, why can't I do it right here in Oakville? And so I got a job there, and I've been there, now I've been there 8 years almost, and, was primarily in Oakville, and now I've moved out to the East Coast, kind of North Atlantic, just above Maine in Nova Scotia. And, life has changed a little bit. I got my wife, and I've got 2 little kids, and we got a dog, and still getting to play lacrosse. So it just so happens Halifax got a team last year, so it makes my travel a little easier than flying to Boston every weekend.
No, yeah, absolutely. The way you've kind of managed everything between a wife, 2 kids, 2 different professional careers, that's kind of the perfect model for any Queens lacrosse player. Or if you have any advice for maybe a Queens lacrosse player or somebody of another sport who is looking to pursue some kind of professional career, I mean, I guess yours is kind of stay busy, because it sounds like you always are, but if there's anything else.
Again, I was lucky in that, I grew up in probably the mecca of lacrosse in Ontario, and had the chance to play box lacrosse growing up. Now, Queens, most student athletes at Queens have grown up in the U.S. and really it becomes more difficult, really, because you have so much more competition, and there's really
it's growing like crazy. Yeah.
Well, the transition from the outdoor game to the indoor game is a lot more difficult than the other way around, right? And and you have a coach that's done it, right? I mean, Chris Pan was a fantastic box player, and I played with him in Langley for a year, so I know his game well. And again, that transition is not easy. And I guess playing at Queens, what the benefit of having a coach like that is, he knows what it takes. He's been there, he's done it, right? So it's the perfect combination, and guys that are willing to put in the time and learn the game, and it can happen, right? I mean, I started in Toronto when Tom Schreiber just started box lacrosse, and we kind of would laugh at the way he would play, but all of a sudden he'd adapt, and now look at him, right? He's probably one of the top 5-10 players in the box game. So again, it's doable. It's just you got to put in the effort, and you got to be willing to kind of not be the stud and take the role that you're given.
Absolutely. Your guys' season this year was kind of when everything came to a stop. They were part of it. They postponed the season, and then they outright canceled it on, I believe, April 9th. So, I mean, during all of this, you're a veteran in the league now, so you kind of know what it takes. I mean, how was it just trying to I guess stay in playing shape, take care of your body. I guess you have a little more time with the off season. But
Yeah,
how have you handled it?
it's hard. I mean, a blessing and a curse, really. I mean, again, if you're 22, 23 years old and just getting out of school and you don't have all the responsibilities of someone that's in their 30s, it probably sucked and it was probably very hard. For me, it's, I'm not going out on weekends and the social life isn't there anymore, right?
Yeah.
So makes it a little bit easier. It's more of just giving me time to really heal my body and work out as much as possible and get as fit as possible, because you never know when the season's going to start back up and you want to be ready. So I liked it. I mean, it's, again, I've never, like you saw what I've talked about for the 4 years at Queens, right? It's just, you never really have an off season. So the last 6 months, as difficult as it's been kind of being sheltered in our house. And I mean, you guys know up here in Canada, it's probably twice as strict as it is in the US, right? We pretty much can't go anywhere, can't even take a walk in the park. So it's been a bit of isolation, but at the same time with 2 young ones, it's been great to be around them and get to know them and kind of be a dad for a bit.
Abigail and Chase, how old are they?
Yeah. So Abigail's 4 and my little guy Chase just turned 2.
That's got to be fun. Well,
busy.
Yeah, busy.
Hard to comprehend for a college kid.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, Steph, really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Everybody in the Queens community is rooting for you, and really proud of all the success that you've had. And just want to say thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. And again, hopefully there's quite a few Queens players that can follow in my footsteps.
Absolutely. This has been Steph Leblanc, a professional lacrosse player, a former Queens Royal. And thank you, Steph.
All right. Thanks, Mike.